The Commanders have a new team president. They have hired Mark Clouse to be their president. We told you about this when the news broke just a couple of days ago. President and CEO is going to be the title. That's where the job was. That was his title at Campbell's, the company that he served at since 2019. He fills the place as team president of Jason Wright. He was hired 4 years after Wright was in August of 2020. Danny, what would you tell Mark Clouse if you could tell him one thing? Because I feel like, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but I feel like one of the issues Jason Wright had was he didn't have enough people around him that had been here to tell him things. One of us, I don't mean you and me, I mean the people listening, like one of the real ones, one of the people that are OGs, Commanders fans, Redskins fans, people that when they were 7 like I was doing, put on their Christmas list Redskins stuff. Like there just weren't enough people like that in his ear. And so if you got to tell Clouse one thing, what would it be?
Play the long game. So there's a million ways to do that, and some of the permutations as it presents itself to fans. But what I think drives a lot of people crazy is think of like I don't know, I'm picking a team. Pick the Nationals, for example. One year it's Nats plus rewards. The next year it's Nats Bucks. The year after that it's Nats red carpet rewards. The year after I'm making these up. I have no idea if this is real or not. But you know what I mean. The next year it's like Nats Diamond special. Like stop coming up with new gimmicky things and play the long game. Give the people that are filling your coffers reason to continue to do so. Give people stuff. If it costs you in the short term, it's going to build something in the long term, right? Your season ticket base, all the people that have been with you through thick and so much thin, give them things. Don't just like, here's $1 off a soda. That ain't enough. There's no reason for somebody to go on StubHub and pay $11 for a game, and then they can pay full price for a burger or whatever that's probably pretty cold. There's no advantage to being a season ticket holder. Give them advantages. I'm not talking about like a voucher for I don't know, like a koozie or something like that. It's got to be a significant, huge investment, kind of like what Mitch Rails was talking about, going to different schools and busing the kids to games and giving everybody a Terry McLaurin jersey, whatever. But play the long game. You're still in a friend-raising phase. Do that for a long, long, long time, and eventually you'll reap the benefits.
I think that's really good. I thought you were going to go with changing the name, which has kind of been a pet project of yours for a little while. But that's actually helpful, good advice. I think I would probably at least want to mention in a short conversation with him that Jason Wright's issue, if he had one early on, was the lack of kind of long-term knowledge.
Institutional memory.
And the inability to establish any of that institutional memory by having enough people like that around. I don't want to see them make that mistake. I think that's high on my list, honestly. Make sure that you got someone in your office, like the dude that's got the Redskins tattoo on his forearm. Maybe don't fire that guy if you don't need to. I would say that would be a start. Another thing, though, is, and I don't think I would need to tell him this. I bet he would know this as a pretty good, sharp businessman. Like, everything you do, you can do behind the scenes. I think it would be really healthy and good for this organization if we never, ever, ever heard Clouse's name. And the football stuff was all that we saw publicly. Peters, Quinn, their operation was everything. So that we're not talking on the show in months about Clouse or about the business side of things, or it really shouldn't be news. Like, do you think in Kansas City, they're talking about the Chiefs picked up a new advertiser? They're now going to be, their suites are sponsored by Pepsi or, whatever. That's not a thing in most markets. It was a thing here because the story was that advertisers were pulling out.
Yeah, they needed to show some victories.
Totally.
Right?
And no one wanted to work with Dan. And now it's a big deal that someone's working with Josh. And so it was always significant in that way. But if we could get back to a normal, which is the sport is what matters for the sports team and the business stuff is irrelevant to most people, I think that would be a huge win.
Yeah, I'm all about that. So, I mean, there's a fine line to walk, though, where I want this person to feel not so far above the fans that it's only like guys in the C-suite and he's only glad-handing with the dude from, I don't know, Boeing or whatever in the suites, and he only cares about millionaires. I want the regular fan to feel like they've got access to a degree where he cares about you and your hard-earned dollar going towards the team. But I see your point.
I do think that Jason Wright did that, and maybe that's what you're saying. I think Jason Wright did a good job of making it feel like for each individual fan, he cared a little bit by being present on social media, by being accessible.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I have heard from 1 or 5 or 10 people that tell me they had a personal interaction where they contacted Jason, he contacted them back. I've heard from 100 people to say that. And maybe that goes against what I'm suggesting because I thought maybe he was too public facing and front facing at times in terms of fans knowing who he is, being recognizable, walking through the parking lot. Like, and what you needed 4 years ago is different from what you needed now. Like they needed the Dark Knight, so to speak, right? They needed, or I guess the White Knight. I don't know how it is, but like the Batman guy that you put in the spotlight and you go, this is your hero, this is your conqueror,
Mm-hmm.
and they basically made Jason Wright that guy. Post La Famina, post Scott McLuhan, he was supposed to be the savior. You don't need that anymore. I got Josh Harris as a savior. I got Adam Peters as a savior. If you want Dan Quinn to be your savior, I think Jaden Daniels can be your savior. So because you don't need that, you could just go sit in your office. I hope I forget your name a month from now.
Yeah.
As far as the fan in me goes.
Yeah, I smell what you're cooking there. I mean, again, I don't know exactly how to be a good team president because I've never seen one. Honestly, I like here. I've never seen what it actually looks like to have somebody that's really, really good.
You
at
see it in other sports here.
I mean, you're right.
I will say you probably don't know those people or know that they're good or even maybe recognize them because they are good.
Right. I was just thinking about it from the football team, but you're right. I mean, I knew Stan Kasten's name. That guy was out front everywhere all the time. Is that good or bad? I feel like he did enough good stuff to be noteworthy, but I see your point in general. I'm not disagreeing. I don't know why I'm being so difficult, but I guess to that point, I need the fan that's taking their time, taking their dollar, taking their energy, they're saying no to other things and saying yes to you. I need that to feel worth it every time, even if you lose the game. There's got to be more investment there. It's easier said than done. Obviously, there's only so much you can do with that stupid stadium that everybody hates, but there needs to be that we appreciate you, and not just like a thank you email at the end of the year, not just the season ticket rep calling you and saying, hey, it's the cost is gonna go up, which they are, by the way. Like there's got to be a way to really, really, really get down on your hands and knees and scrub the stain out, right? To show everyone that you're doing it. This big, huge effort. And it doesn't mean that he has to call every season ticket holder or has to email somebody or get on the phone with somebody who might want to buy a partial game package. But that attitude to be way more appreciative of business usually feels fleeting. It's like, we'll give you a nice thing in September, and then that's the end. And by the end of the regime, we're already looking for other jobs, and it doesn't really feel like we're appreciated anymore. Talking about from the fan side. There's got to be a continued, constantly renewed sense of we are so grateful that you're here and a part of this thing.
Yeah, I think that they've done a better job at that.
Yes.
And need to continue to because it's the only way to build this thing back up. His job, by the way, while not as arduous or difficult or impossible as his predecessors during the Snyder era, still, though, I mean, what a tall order. I don't know what he dealt with at Campbell's or what that gig was like. I like, though, that he has been in charge of something. I like that he has some experience in this regard. But I think his gig coming in here to be the president of the Commanders, man, I don't even know how how many fans are there that are winnable? How many fans can you bring back? That's his job.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of them, right? Stadium, name, getting people to spend a lot of money on the team, advertisers. But really, at the end of the day, all of those things are going to benefit from you're trying to get the fans back who have left or that don't care anymore. And what I don't know is how many of those people are still reachable or are lost causes, essentially, that you just give up on.
There, to me, the best way to do it, and I hate that we're post-election, hopefully everybody can handle it. Do you energize the base or do you try to reach across the aisle? Right? I mean, that's kind of the age-old question for if you're running a campaign. What do you do? To me, energizing the base more, I think, ends up growing the base here. Just sort of looking at it, which may not be intuitive.
From a business standpoint, though? Because the energizing of the base, I think, is happening this year. Like the people that have opted in by being 8-5, by going to games being fun again, by headed to the playoffs, by getting a playoff game, even though it'll be on the road. I guess a home game would have been better.
Mhm.
I think you're energizing the base. I feel like his job is to grow the tent. And I think the way to do that is probably to reach across the aisle.
So again, it doesn't say you have to do one or the other. Obviously, but what are you going to major in? I guess is kind of the discussion. I mean, to me, that base has grown, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. Whether that's returning customers, guys that have said, I've never gone, I'm going now, or I used to go and I'm going again for the first time in 10 years. How many of those fans did we hear from? Right, where you're trying to do as much as you possibly can. To me, the correct honoring of Darryl Green. Not something forced and cheesy, but like that video that didn't make anybody $1. You do that, and who gets excited? Everybody that remembers Darryl Green playing. And that's your old base that kind of made this thing huge and great, right?
Maybe
you do
the more of that stuff you could do, because that also appealed to your current base.
Precisely.
That was both.
Yeah.
I mean, when you say reach across the aisle, I think it's important to kind of define that. There was a time where maybe from a sports standpoint, that means appeal to, to non-Commanders fans that like the other DC sports teams or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I think what we're talking about in that way is the disenfranchised, the people that are gone. The Redskins fan who says, I don't care anymore. And we got callers still that listen to the show that go, yeah, I've sworn them off. I don't watch. I don't listen. I don't do this and that. I mean, that's who we're talking about when you say, outreach across the aisle.
So I meant it more as my kid who only watches Manchester City play. Like trying to win the new fan, the people that haven't been a fan before. I was thinking of that.
So the young people's a whole different category to me of that. That's a good point. And that too is how you could grow the bases.
Mm-hmm.
But then you don't even have to worry about the old fans. If really it's just about the people that have bought in and making sure young people continue to, you could just tell the old Redskins fans that don't like the name and don't like the logo and don't want anything to do with the new thing. So be it. And just move on, which I don't think is the best way. I don't think that's what they should do. But that's definitely a philosophy as well.